Hey y'all, my name's Angelica Rubio, State Representative for District 35, representing the city of Las Cruces, and this is a brief update. Late last night, the Senate passed House Joint Resolution 5. House Joint Resolution 5 would change we would send this question to voters in November, asking them to say yes to us changing the Constitution to allow us to receive a salary. For those of you who do not know, we don't get paid for this. We don't get a salary. We're purely volunteer. We receive a per diem, and but only when we're in session, not any other day when we're helping constituents or doing legislative work. The other thing is that we do get a pension, but you have to pay into it, and a lot of us can't afford to pay into it, and so there's no guarantee that we will get a pension. So I want to make that clear because that's some of the things that the narrative that you hear, that we get this really amazing pension, but I personally haven't been able to pay into it. I say all of this because it is rough being a legislator, and especially when you're not able to afford it. And so House Joint Resolution 5 gets us one step closer to getting a salary, but not me personally, but it wouldn't go into effect until 2029, which means that we are proposing something for future legislators. This means that so many of you all, working families who have wanted to be able to serve your community in some way, shape, or form, but couldn't in the state legislature because you can't just afford to take off or do this work without pay. This is an opportunity for you all to do that. With that said, I also want to share that this was many years in the making. Last night's win in the Senate um, didn't happen overnight. In 2017, I ran on this issue of paying legislators. It was something that in my district, many people just didn't understand. They couldn't believe that we did not get compensation for this work. And it was a very popular issue in my district of District 35 in Las Cruces. And so when I got here to the legislature, I realized why. Because no one was really talking about it. Nobody was really excited about this issue. At one point, I heard from leadership and folks on the other side who felt like legislators were doing well enough. We didn't have to consider salaries, especially because it had been shot down by voters in the past, like 6 times. I even had a Republican on the other side tell me when I introduced a memorial to study the possibility of compensation, saying that we would never get there. And then shortly after the pandemic, a group of us in the House, as you all know, we're a majority women in the legislature in the House side. And a group of us got together to work on issues related to broadband. And during this time, it was myself, Representative Joy Garrett, then Representative Natalie Figueroa, who is now a senator, Representative Debbie Sereniana, Representative Chris Chandler, Representative Christine Ortez, Representative Susan Herrera, Representative Marion Matthews. After we were done with this broadband work, we decided, you know what, we work really well together. How about we work on modernizing our legislature? And so for the last 5 years, that's what we've done. And for about 4 years, it has passed the House of Representatives every year. Our issue had always been the Senate. The Senate would either not hear it or they would hear it, but then they would, that's it. They wouldn't take a vote on it. Another time they did hear it for like 2 hours, but then the vote was tied, and so it died. And so last year, a new group of senators entered the Senate. And this past year, we worked on this legislation, made some changes, and this process it finally paid its we finally saw some wins, and we saw that tonight with Senator Nava and Senator Charlie leading the way in the Senate, and of course my colleagues in the House, Representative Abeda and Representative Barajon, also on this legislation. And so that is done. It's heading to the voters in November. On election day, and the question will be, do you support, it's going to be fairly long, but it's, do you support essentially updating the Constitution so that legislators can get paid the median salary that all New Mexicans are making right now? Because whenever you do well, we'll do well, and if you don't do well, we won't do well. With that said, y'all, and I shared a little bit about this with the passage of House Bill 9, which is the Immigrant Safety Act, is that important pieces of legislation, like transformational pieces of legislation, don't happen overnight. There's foundation that has to be set. There's narratives that have to be changed. There's narratives that have to be dismantled, because when something big is introduced into the legislature, it could feel like radical and insane, like absolutely no way we're going to get this done. And here we are 10 years later from the time that I was elected into this House, and looking back and seeing how a couple dudes laughed because they thought this would never happen. And now to see all this work by all these amazing women in the House and in the Senate to get it through is badass. This is a prime example of why we should pay our legislators, because we've all worked our asses off to get legislation like this and like House Bill 9 and others passed, but it's been a heavy lift, and we need more of you all here. So last night was an incredible win to get that over the finish line. Now it heads to voters in November, which means that we have 9 months to educate and inform our voters about this issue, because a lot of folks, almost 60% of New Mexicans already think that we make a salary. But the key here, based on the studies that we've done, is that when we tell them that we don't get a salary, they're shocked, and then they're like, oh fuck yeah, we should pay legislators. So I need for you all to start doing that work, that as we start working on re-electing our amazing legislators this next session, and then bringing in new legislators, hopefully who are running for open seats or challenging others, that this also be part of our plan, that we're also educating and informing our voters about how we don't get paid, how that question is going to be on the ballot in November, and how we need them to not only support legislators through a vote, but also to be the representation that we need here in the New Mexico State Legislature. Y'all, again, this was a really important win last night, and it took a long time to get here. And please just understand how this process works, that it takes time. It's a long journey. But so many of us have stuck through, and I'm so grateful for the new generation of legislators who came in and were able to push this over the finish line. And now it's up to you all. We need your help to get it through, to help us build that momentum with voters and get them to understand and not to listen to the opposition as to why not, and instead thinking about, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this. With that, y'all, thank you. Session ends tomorrow at noon. So this is a really good high to end this session. So with that, take care of yourselves, y'all. We'll talk soon. I'll be in touch before tomorrow.